Hello my friends! Today I will make M4 Sherman tank, the most famous and most widely used medium tank by United States in Second World War. The M4 was the most produced tank in American history, with more than 49,000 produced, including variants. It was also the basis of several other armored fighting vehicles, including self-propelled artillery, tank destroyers and armored recovery vehicles. I'm making M4A2 version of Sherman tank with high-velocity 76mm gun. The entire inside of the hull I covered or painted it with white clay. The transmission was located in the front of the hull, separate from the engine. The transmission housing was rounded, made of 3 cast sections bolted together. It ranged from 50.8 to 108mm thick. One of the key design features in the early variants of the M4 Sherman medium tank was the vertical volute spring suspension system, VVSS. The VVSS provided excellent suspension for armored vehicles during road and cross-country movements through a configuration of coiled springs in the shape of cones or volutes. During operation, the coils would slide over one another, compressing to absorb the shock and instability of varied terrain. Mounted vertically in a compact system that included the bogie and a pair of rod wheels, the VVSS outperformed other leaf spring, torsion bar or coil systems that has been previously in use. During extended deployments and combat operations, the VVSS was found to have a relatively short useful life, particularly with the increasing weight of the tanks and their heavy weapons as World War II progressed. When the M4A2 Sherman variant was introduced in late 1942, the vertical volute suspension was gradually replaced in some of the production tanks with horizontal volute suspension system, HVSS. The HVSS was heavy and stronger than its predecessor, permitted the changing of individual wheels if necessary, and extended the useful life of the tank's wheels as well. So, the M4A2 was the latest version of Sherman tanks with the vertical volute spring suspension. The Sherman had rubber block tracks. Tank had good speed both on and off-road. Off-road performance varied. In the desert, the Sherman's rubber block tracks performed well, while in the hilly terrain of Italy, the smaller, nimbler Sherman could often cross terrain that some heavy German tanks could not. The gearbox had 5 forward and 1 reverse gears and provided the tank with maximum speed from 22 to 30 miles per hour on road and from 15 to 20 miles per hour off-road. So many engines was installed on Shermans. Each modification of tank had its own engine. M4 and M4A1 model had Continental C4 9-cylinder radial gasoline engine. M4A2 model had General Motors 6046 twin-inline diesel engine. Everybody loves diesel. M4A3 model had Ford GA-V8 gasoline engine. M4A4 model had Chrysler A57 multi-bunk gasoline engine with 30 cylinders. Jesus, why are there so many of them? And finally, M4A6 model had Caterpillar D200A 9-cylinder radial diesel engine. In my model, instead General Motors 6046 diesel engine, I made Ford GA-V8 gasoline engine. My bad, my mistake. I got confused and mixed up the engine model. The engine on your screen was installed in the modification M4A3. The drive shaft ran low below the turret basket through the bottle compartment and connected to the transmission. The driver's seat was to the left on the transmission, assistant driver to the right. Also, assistant driver operated with bow-mounted 30 caliber M1919 Browning machine gun. The ammunition storage was on the hull floor with water jackets surrounding each storage bin. The practice, known as wet storage, reduced the chance of fire after a hit to about 15%. Only 10–15% of wet storage Shermans burned when penetrated, compared to 60–80% of older dry storage Shermans. The Sherman's glasses plate was originally 50 mm thick and angled at 56 degrees from the vertical, providing an effective thickness of 90 mm. Later Shermans had an upgraded glasses plate that was uniformly 63.5 mm thick and sloped at 47 degrees from the vertical, providing an effective thickness of 93 mm over the entire plate. The upper and lower hull sides were 38 mm thick and vertical, while the upper hull rear were also 38 mm thick, vertical, or sloped at 10 degrees from the vertical. The lower hull rear, which protected the engine, was 38 mm thick, sloped at 0 to 22 degrees from the vertical, depending upon the variant. The hull roof was 25 mm. The hull floor ranged from 25 mm thick under the driver and assistant driver's positions to 12.7 mm thick at the rear. The hull roof had two hatches for driver and assistant driver. Engine deck. First version M4 and M4A1 had no radiator grills on the engine deck. My version M4A2 and all other versions had large radiator grills on the engine deck that opened upwards. M4A2 Sherman tanks were equipped with the T80 turret developed for the T23 tank and the new 76mm gun. This turret's armor was 63.5 mm thick on the side and rear, angled from the 0 to 13 degrees from the vertical. It had a 25 mm thick roof. The front of the T23 turret was protected by unsloped 89 mm thick cast gun mantlet. 3 members of crew was inside the turret: a loader, a commander and a gunner. Radio equipment is located in the rear of the turret. The gunner operated with high-velocity 76mm gun, which gave Sherman's anti-tank firepower equal to many of the German vehicles they encountered, but its gun was inferior to that of the Tiger or the Panther. The 76mm could penetrate 125mm of unsloped armor at 100 meters and 106mm at 1000 meters, using the usual M64 round. The M1 gun helped to equalize the Sherman and the Panzer IV in terms of firepower, but Panther had much more powerful 75mm gun L70, which could penetrate 185mm of unsloped armor at 100 meters and 149mm at 1000 meters, using the usual Panzer Granada 39 round. The 76mm was capable of knocking out a Panther at normal combat range from the flanks or rear, but could not overcome the glacis plate. An M4 might only knock out a Panther frontally from point-blank range by aiming for its turret front. Also, Sherman could penetrate the upper frontal hull superstructures of the Tiger I tank from a normal combat ranges, but Tiger I was still capable of knocking an M4 out of frontally from over 2000 meters. The Sherman main gun had 71 rounds in the ammunition rack. From the left side of the gun was installed a coaxial 30 caliber M1990 Browning machine gun with 4750 rounds of ammunition. All 76mm gun turrets had two roof hatches. Also on the roof was mounted 50 caliber M2 Browning heavy machine gun with 300 rounds for anti-aircraft protection. The Sherman first saw combat at the Second Battle of El Alamein in October 1942 with the British 8th Army. Their first encounter with the tanks was against German Panzer III and Panzer IV tanks with long 50 and 75mm guns, engaging them at 2000 yards. There were losers to both sides. The first Sherman to enter combat with the 76mm gun in July 1944 was the M4A1, then the M4A2, closely followed by M4A3. By the end of the war, roughly half the US Army Shermans in Europe had the 76mm gun. The first HVSS equipped Sherman to see combat was the M4A3 in December 1944. During Second World War, approximately 19,247 Shermans were issued to the US Army and about 1,114 to the US Marine Corps. The US also supplied 17,184 to United Kingdom, while the Soviet Union received 4,102 and an estimated 812 were transferred to China. After World War II, the US Army replaced the M4 only in 1957. The Israel Defense Force used Shermans from its creation in 1948 until the 1980s. M4A3 were also used by British forces in Indonesia during the Indonesian National Revolution in 1946-1949. Also, Sherman tanks was used in Balkan Wars in 90s. So, this is my first model with fully opening hull, very interesting experience for me, hope you enjoyed my work, thanks for watching guys, subscribe to the channel and I hope see you at the next video.